Good afternoon and welcome to today's Planning Committee. This is not a public meeting, but a meeting the public can attend. I'm Councillor Susan Durant, Chair of the Planning Committee. Before we commence, I'd like to outline the domestic arrangements for the meeting. We're not expecting a fire practice today. If the alarm sounds, please leave the building by way of the fire exit through the doors at the rear of the chamber on my right. When you have left the chamber, proceed down the stairway and exit through the emergency exit on the ground floor. If there is anybody with mobility issues, please wait in the refuge area at the top of the stairs where the emergency evacuation lift is located, and use the intercom situated on the left-hand side of the lift door to call for assistance. The designated assembly point is in the public square in front of Cast beyond the fountain. I'd like to inform members of the public and press that today's meeting will be audio-visually recorded, and by entering the council chamber, you accept that you will be recorded and your images retained and broadcast by the council on its website and on YouTube. If anyone intends to record or film any part of today's meeting, please ensure that this does not disturb the conduct of the meeting and you only focus on recording those people participating. Please ensure that your mobile phones are switched to silent mode. May I remind anyone speaking in the meeting that you will need to press the large red button underneath the microphone and ensure that the light is illuminated, and it will ensure you are being recorded. The meeting is proceeding today on the basis that all members of the committee have read their agenda papers thoroughly and are aware of what they will be considering today. If any member of the committee leave the chamber during consideration of an application, they should ensure they do not take part in the vote on their return, as they will not have heard all the relevant information on that particular item. Thank you. Item 1, we've got apologies for absence, and we've received apologies from Councillors Amy Dixon, Andy Pickering and Emma Muddiman-Rawlins. Are there any other apologies? Councillor Duncan Anderson? Thank you. Item 2 is exclusion of the public and press. There are no exempt items on today's agenda. Item 3 is declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest, please? No? Thank you. Item 4 is minutes of the Planning Committee, which was held on the 12th of December 23. Can the minutes be moved as a true and accurate record? Can that be seconded? And is that agreed? Thank you. Item 5 is our schedule of applications. And the first application is a planning application 23/02052/4FULM, which is the demolition of existing buildings and erection of a new commercial development block at Doncaster Gateway, Trafford Way in Doncaster, and Elisa Murray is the planning case officer, which will present this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks permission for erection of a 5-storey building to be used for office and commercial uses. The application site is brownfield and contains commercial uses. The site is located in a central location adjacent to the Doncaster train station and close to the main shopping area. This is just an aerial image of the site area. The site would run alongside Trafford Way, which is the main route in and out of the city centre, and it is densely populated with other commercial and mixed-use developments. I'm just going to run some site photos, just so we can get a context of where the building will be placed. So these photos show Trafford Court, which is the office building neighbouring the train station. This is proposed to be demolished, and the proposed public realm be placed where the building is now. It would connect in with the existing public realm to the station forecourt, and any hard standing and surfacing would reflect that within the station forecourt and those used within the Quality Streets programme, which is being completed within the city centre as we speak. Okay, so these photos are of West Street, which is where the building will be located. In particular, these photos show the Wolseley Plum Centre. The proposal is to demolish this building as well and erect the multi-storey building in its place. The first stretch off West Street from Trafford Way will also be narrowed and speed restraints put in to make the area more pedestrian friendly. And the parking bays on West Street next to the site would be altered to load-in and disabled bays, and the remainder of West Street will remain the same. This is a vacant retail unit which is also to be demolished. It will make way for the alfresco eating area to the south, a substation and the landscaping which will support the commercial units operating at ground floor. And then these images are just taken from the opposite side of Trafford Way to give context of the building and its location adjacent to the road. And then we'll just move on to some visuals of the proposal. These visuals just show it along Trafford Way, so how the building would sit along that main arterial road through the city centre. And then these show it from Trafford Way and West Street. So the southern elevation will contain balconies, which you can see from the approach from the south of Trafford Way. And then on West Street, it will just have an active frontage at ground floor with those smaller commercial units. And then it will have landscaping to the south and to the north. These visuals show the building from the aspect of the train station forecourt, showing how the building will sit with the public realm and the neighbouring buildings. As you can see, the public realm is very green in nature, which does differ from that the station forecourt, which is quite hard. It will offer green space within the city centre. And then these visuals show how the building sits within the public realm area itself, and then the lower level at alfresco dining, like I said previously, to show that there will be an active frontage at ground floor. Then this is the site plan. It shows the scale of the area for the public open space, to which the finer details of landscaping will be secured via condition. It also shows the new position of the disabled bays for the train station, which would allow for the additional drop-off spaces for other vehicles within the train station itself. The existing cycle parking in the station forecourt will remain, and cycle storage will be provided on site for the users of this building. The development will have space to provide alfresco dining to the north and the south elevations and provides active frontages at street level. The proposal is principally acceptable. It is on a mixed-use allocated site within the Doncaster local plan, with aspirations of Policy 68 for the St Sepulchre Gate West area being met through this proposal. Whilst it is acknowledged that the development is contrary to some local plan policies in terms of design, it is also, however, considered that other material considerations outweigh that harm. The economic benefits of this proposal are significant and will be brought forward by the Town Deal Fund, by the Council, in order to meet the aspirations of the Urban Centre Master Plan. There's been no objections from any member of the public. One representation has been received from the Civic Trust, who outlined some points to consider. The pre-committee amendments outlines that the MPPF has been updated since the report was published and provides the report summary in full after the formatting error in the agenda. A representation has also been received from Street Scene, which the applicant has addressed, and the points raised, which are also outlined within the pre-committee amendments. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Alicia. We've got Claire Plant, the agent, who has requested to speak in support of the application. This is now your opportunity to address the committee for up to 5 minutes. Press the large red button when you're ready, and again to mute the microphone when you're finished, and I'll let you know when you've got 1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Chair and members. Members will be aware that this project represents the culmination of several years' work by members of the Council and also other key stakeholders within the Towns Deal Board, who secured a significant investment of £24 million for this project. The regeneration of this area was originally set out in the Urban Centre Master Plan, which was produced in 2016, and the proposals before you were a result of emerging work since that time through workshops, consultation with stakeholders and other discussions with officers during the planning application process. As officers have reported, the site's in a mixed-use area in the adopted plan and currently contains a number of poor quality, largely vacant buildings, as well as large areas of hard standing adjacent to the main train station forecourt. The demolition of Trafford Court is permitted development which doesn't require planning permission, and the removal of the existing buildings will allow the delivery of a substantially more accessible, efficient and sustainable building for the long term. It will set a new standard for office space in Doncaster and strongly supports the Council's climate change objectives and the climate change emergency declared in 2019. The proposed development itself includes Grade A office and commercial space, as well as a new area of public open space. The open space is designed to complement the existing public realm works implemented by the Council previously, adjacent to the train station, and present an attractive gateway when you enter the city by rail. The proposals also bring a number of key benefits, which I would just want to take the opportunity to highlight to you, and because we think they strongly support both the Council's objectives but also government's objectives through the Town's Deal funding. Environmentally and socially, the building's aiming to achieve BREEAM excellent standards and is intended to be net zero carbon in operation, which will set a new target for sustainability and office space in the city, in accordance with the Council's Policy 43 of the local plan. The building will provide attractive ground floor space which will support the operations of the upper floor office areas and add vibrancy to the street scene. The proposals have been updated during the application process to respond to design panel and officer comments, but also to retain the high quality intent, including the green balconies and the high quality materials that are proposed and reflective of the local context in that area. The height of the building reflects the prevailing height set by the neighbouring NHS centre, and the siting of the building has been discussed at length to make sure it reflects the historic context of the area. From the railway station, a sense of entry and a legible route towards the development will be provided, but also importantly onwards towards the city centre through this newly created public area of open space. This space is a really fundamental part of the Town's Deal bid that was submitted and will provide soft landscaping to complement the harder landscaping and public art that was provided in phase 1. But it will also importantly provide a valley garden space which will screen Trafford Way for those pedestrians within that area. The proposals will also enhance the entrance to the train station, as officers have reported, with new disabled and cycle parking provision to support the car-free focus of the scheme. It's obviously in a highly accessible location for those using public transport. There's been active engagement with LNER, who is supportive of the proposals, and the open space area will also allow 10% biodiversity net gain to be achieved within the site in accordance with the incoming Environment Act. The applicants will continue to work with officers on the planning conditions matters, and importantly, economically, the scheme will elevate the quality of commercial space within Doncaster. Not only will it provide short-term construction jobs, but it's also targeted at providing up to 200 new long-term employment opportunities. It's really well placed as a site to act as a springboard for that gateway area of the city in terms of further inward investment in that location in accordance with Policy 68. And finally, I just want to emphasise that if the scheme is approved today, the funding already in place will enable it to commence very shortly. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. And now we'd ask the committee members if they've got any questions that they would like to ask. Do we have any questions that we'd like to ask? No? Oh, Councillor Cox.
Yeah, you've mentioned car-free for a car-free site that's just next to the railway station. I do have quite a few issues with it being car-free next to a railway station. How is that going to work?
If I can answer that, Chair, and perhaps bring Stephen as well, potentially. Obviously, the railway station's got existing provision. There's no car parking within any of this site at the moment that serves the railway station. So there's no loss of car parking for the station. And obviously, the council's objective from a climate perspective is to encourage use of public transport. We've got the bus station adjacent, the railway station, and then connections into the city centre. We have obviously looked at disabled provision and accessible provision for those users, which we feel is really important. But generally, there's a neutral impact in terms of the parking provision for the station itself. I don't know whether, Steve, whether you want to add anything.
You know, we do recognise that people will drive to work, so it's not that we can stop people, but there are a number of car parks very close by that we know have got capacity, so the provision's already there. It's a question of the more we can encourage people to use public transport, cycling, walking, etc., then the more likely we had. If we've got a car park on site, that works the other way, doesn't it? It encourages the car.
Councillor Hogarth.
Yeah, on the parking, it's like, do we think firms will go and rent space in that building because it ain't got a car park? You know, big firm, they want car park for when they get visitors or head of their firm or whatever to come. You know, I think people will need, because you can't rely on public transport like you used to be able to. So, you know, if trains go on strike, people can't get there. Or they change buses or cut a bus out so people can't get there again. So public transport, I don't think is really an option. I think you still need parking for where you can't get there on public transport.
It's not unusual for buildings to have or utilise local parking nearby, like the multi-stories or St James's, car park. There's a number of car parks in the area, even just across the road, and so that's not unusual for people to be able to utilise those. It happens in other cities, Sheffield, Leeds, etc., where there is no parking immediately outside an office block. It's not that we're stopping people from driving, because people will make those choices, but it's the provision is there if they need it. And the surveys have been done to show that the car park have enough spaces available to accommodate this kind of building.
If I could just add to that, Chair, sorry, from my own experience, our office for my company is located opposite Sheffield train station. We don't benefit from any parking. You make the decision, as Steve said, to park in a public car park or to travel by public transport. It's also speaking to lots of companies who may come to the city ultimately. It's one of their key environmental objectives largely now for the major companies is that they don't rely on car parking and they have to find other ways around it, cycle to work schemes and things like that. So from my own experience, if that's helpful, Chair, that's my experience of it.
Thank you for that. Councillor Cox, were you indicating?
Could you just tell me what the maximum occupancy would be of that building if it's full?
The calculations that have been done as part of this is purely the office space, as I understand it, are up to 200 employees. Now, obviously, patterns vary post-COVID. I think we've all accepted that. But in terms of the efficiencies of space, that would be the ideal. It could be that a company comes in and actually, puts more people in there, but ultimately. But that's the sort of target level.
200. Right. What consultation obviously has been done. Who were the consultees that, and I'm assuming that it was done through social media, through Doncaster Talks, through all these different things. 200 people walking through Doncaster will be beneficial to Doncaster. 200 people walking from a car park, either it be at Debenhams or just over here, to there isn't, where's the footfall? We've lost footfall from this office being running virtually. We're losing more because of that one over there being closed. And then the footfall that we are having is put next to the railway station. Who chose that site?
I can't comment, Chair, on the early background to the project, but as far as we've consulted, we've obviously spoken to individuals and there's people interested in renting that space. Obviously, people look at a variety of spaces in city centres, so there'll be others that wouldn't be interested in that location for different reasons. But the sort of target for inward investment, my understanding of the evidence is that said, we want to be close to the transport hubs, but able to walk into the town city centres to be able to spend their lunch times, for example. So that was the research. As far as I'm aware, I can't comment on anything prior to our involvement.
Okay, thank you for that. I totally understand the perception that's been, because obviously the professional bodies do tend to use trains and different modes of transport, like I say, so it's a change in society that we have. I also understand that people who've got any specific needs might need to park nearer, and that you've said that there is capacity of the car parks nearby. Do we have any other questions, Councillor Cox? Yep.
In the cabinet decision where the funding was drawn down, it was recommended in the cabinet decision that it increased footfall within the city, and it's only seems to be increasing footfall within that limited area. We know that the footfall has dropped within the town centre, city centre, keep doing it, and we don't seem to be working to get that footfall back into the centre. We know that when Debenhams and everything else were built,
Councillor Cox, we
decreased.
need to, it's got to be specific
Sorry.
to this application on this site, not the location elsewhere, because obviously it's the application is where it is.
I'm concerned it's not the best choice. And I cannot vote on this. I'm abstaining
what
from.
other alternatives were looked at.
I'm abstaining from this.
Do we have any other questions? Okay, thank you, everybody. We're now going to go into debate. Does any member want to comment on the report and ask the planning case officer any questions? Councillor Stapleton.
Thank you, Chair. I had a good look at this last night, and one of the things that sort of concerns me, throughout the report, it mentions things like, it uses the language, A-grade offices proposed would attract different types of businesses, would create jobs. When it talks about the ground floor commercial units, would attract tenants. It's all would. Given the evidence of Doncaster over the last couple of years, we all know within a stone throw where we sit, there are council-owned commercial premises sat empty. There are Grade A listed office blocks sat empty, and I'm not talking for a short period of time, these have been empty for years. So my big concern is we're yet again building another large office block that from a business perspective, I'm not convinced would be an easy sell to potential tenants. Because you look around Doncaster, these brand new buildings been put up and they've never had a tenant in it that's similar in quality. So I'm just sort of saying, where's the evidence that they would have occupancy, they would create jobs? Because everything I'm reading really should be termed as maybe. It's not evidence that will happen. And that's my concern, there's no evidence that this is going to happen. So I don't know if there's any evidence that we know of.
So we know that they are actively promoting the office building already. There's been some events. I mean, it's probably the best place that Steve answer these questions for the major project side, but Business Doncaster have already promoted the development and held events to get potential tenants interested in it, and I believe there is already interest in occupying the building. In terms of, I know what you mean, the CCQ units just out there, obviously they were built and completed just before COVID hit, and they did have tenants and they've all pulled because of COVID. They are actually in the process of pretty much letting all of them now. So things are picking up post-COVID, and obviously we're in the cost of living crisis as well, so that's also hindering some inward investment. But these are the types of offices that we do need, the offices that we do have vacant. they're obviously not attractive in attractive locations, or the layouts aren't as attractive as this one could be. And this is Class A offices, and I don't believe we've got Class A offices of that spec within the city centre itself that offer that layout of open space and everything else. So there is interest in it already.
And also, just to add to that as well, the absolute unique selling point of this development is its location right next door to the railway station and the bus station transport hub.
Well, additionally as well, just saying as well, a lot of these big companies that would be attracted to this office space have their own climate agendas, and by entering into a lease with a net zero operational building is only good for their businesses as well.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, I didn't realise I left my microphone on. Good job I kept my mouth shut, was it? I hear what you're saying, but again, there's no evidence. It's like, when you mentioned the units out there, and you say they're in the process of being occupied. There's I'm not going to name it, but there's a large office building near Christchurch there on the corner that, since it's been built, has not had no tenant in it. There's another one just behind you in the Waterdale that was built, never had a tenant in it. I fail to see how this, if British Rail don't even want it, why would any other company? And I'm sorry, but the comment you made about the cost of living crisis has affected it. Cost of living crisis affects ordinary people, not CEOs of multinational, multi-billion pound companies. And I just struggle to see that this is going to attract an anchor tenant of any quality, given its size and its nature. But we'll wait and see.
Do we have any other questions? I'll make a comment. I think it's quite exciting actually, because obviously for an area to improve, we've got to have investment into it. So I think we should be welcoming investment, and we do actually need quality office facilities. We all talk about fetching business into our communities. We all talk about having good quality jobs, high-tech jobs and everything. And for us to be able to do that, we need to be able to facilitate good provision. And I do think we do lack what I would class as excellent facilities to provide that sort of thing. And with the carbon initiative and everything, I think environment, that a lot of people and professional people are doing more and more. They're probably a lot more proactive than we are on using trains and transport modes. And we do have car parks. So I can personally see a future in this sort of development and think that it could be really positive for our community. So for me personally, I'd be minded to actually agree this, because no matter what application comes before us as a panel, we can't guarantee on hand or heart every time that there will be somebody that will take that building up. We have to take each application on merit. There's interest, we've been told by officers already in this building, and it could be an exciting opportunity to create employment opportunities and investment. That's just my opinion. Anybody else like to comment? Thank you. Therefore, is there a proposal to grant planning permission subject to conditions? Anybody happy to move that? Councillor Hogarth. Seconder, Councillor Beach. Can we have a show of hands of those in favour, please? Those against? And abstentions? Thank you for, therefore, that is passed. And permission granted. Item 6 is consideration of variation to 2 Section 106 agreements in relation to the affordable housing requirements on land up to the easy side of Atfield Lane, Armthorpe, under references 12/00188/OUTM and 20/01606/FULM. And Roy Sykes, Head of Planning, will introduce this report. Over to you, Roy.
Thank you, Chair. This is a deed of variation application to amend the affordable housing provision in 2 Section 106 agreements relating to land to the east of Hatfield Lane, Armthorpe. This is the aerial photo and shows the site in question. And as you can see, the site development is well underway. Just need to give you a little bit of a planning overview. So The first permission for the site was an outline application for residential development that was granted on the 27th of October 2017. The permission also granted outline consent for industrial development in the eastern part of the site beyond the power lines that dissect the site. But this is not relevant, as that industrial land was developed under a separate full permission under a separate application at a later stage. The Section 106 agreement for this outline consent secured several contributions, including 26% affordable housing or 99 units as per the policy in the core strategy at the time. Following on from the grant of outline permission, a reserved matters consent for 382 dwellings was subsequently approved on the 15th of January 2021. The site plan shows, just out of interest, an indicative layout for 18 dwellings in the southwestern corner, but this was only indicative and edged blue to show that Albemarle Homes were now the owners of the land, but it did require its own consent. This is where the second permission for the smaller site came in for 18 dwellings on the 28th of July 2022. This proposal for 18 dwellings included 9 dormer bungalows. So this permission, along with the 382 homes approved under the earlier permission, makes up the 400 dwellings allowed on this site under the Armthorpe Neighbourhood Plan and the Doncaster Local Plan. And this permission for the 18 dwellings was subject to a Section 106 agreement requiring 23% affordable housing or 4 units as per the local plan policy at the time. So just to kind of bring that to, there's a lot of figures I've thrown at you there, and I do apologise, but in total across both permissions, the total amount of affordable housing provided by the permissions is 99 and 4, which equals 103. The proposed changes now to the Section 106 agreement. The starting point is the key planning test, which is in considering allowing any variation to a Section 106 agreement, you have to go through a process of making a decision as to whether it no longer serves a useful purpose or would serve that purpose equally well if modified in a specified way. And it's this latter one we'll be focusing on. Strategic Housing has over the last 2 years been negotiating with the developer to acquire more of the dormer bungalows as affordable units on the 18-house scheme and offset this with a reduction in the affordable housing on the larger site. The developer has worked proactively with Strategic Housing on this, and an agreement in principle has been reached to increase the supply of older people's affordable housing, and this is also a mayoral priority. As set out in the report, there will be 6 fewer affordable units delivered across the whole of the site, but the reason for this is that bungalows attract a higher value and are being built to a much higher specification in order to meet the council's needs. This agreement would allow the council in its strategic housing capacity to increase its supply of older people's housing and secure the type of affordable housing that is needed. This shows just the type of dormer bungalow that the council would be securing, and although not here, it would also include solar panels. So in summary, these changes to the Section 106 agreements have come about as a result of Strategic Housing wanting to provide the type of affordable housing that is needed in the area, and the developers worked proactively with Strategic Housing to allow them to take on more of the dormer bungalows as affordable, but this does have a knock-on effect for the affordable housing provision across the wider site. Although in total 6 fewer affordable units would be provided, the variation will provide the type and quality of affordable housing that is needed. This has been considered in the planning balance by the local planning authority and is considered therefore to serve its purpose equally well if modified as recommended. It is therefore recommended that Planning Committee agree to these 2 deeder variations to reduce the requirement from 26 to 23% on the larger site and to increase it from 23% to 50%, that's the 9 dormer bungalows, on the smaller site. And please note, we do have Martin Healy from the Strategic Housing team available should you have any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Roy. Does any member wish to speak on this item? No? Therefore, there's a proposal to, one, authorise the head of planning to agree a deed of variation to vary the terms of the Section 106 agreement dated the 27th of October 2017 to reduce the requirement of affordable housing from 26% to 23% in accordance with the terms of this report. The provision relating to education, highways, transportation, bus stops and travel plan are unchanged. And 2, authorise the head of planning to agree a deed of variation to vary the terms of the Section 106 agreement dated the 28th of July 2022 to increase the requirement of affordable housing from 23% to 50% in accordance with the terms of the report, and the variation will continue to serve a useful purpose equally well in respect of affordable housing provision. Is there a mover for the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Stapleton. Is there a seconder? Councillor Hogarth. Can we have a show of hands of those in favour, please? That's unanimous. Therefore, that application and deed variation has been agreed. Item 7 is appeal edition. The report is for information only. Does any member wish to speak on this item? Okay, can I ask committee members move that the report be noted? Thank you, members, ladies and gentlemen. That concludes the business at today's meeting, and thank you for everybody for their attendance and input. I now declare the meeting closed.